in the interest of a safer American home, a happier American community, a more united state. The
Red Shovel Network
and its affiliated stations bring you
the soul of Detroit.
I dedicate this program to the fight against crime. Not only crimes of violence and crimes of dishonesty, but also crimes of intolerance, discrimination, and bad citizenship. Crimes against America.
The Red Shovel Network
presents another case in the career of
M.L. Elric.
celebrated fighter of crime. As usual,
M.L.
invites you to match wits with him as he relates the mystery. And before revealing the solution, he gives you a chance to solve it. Tonight,
M.L.
guest armchair detective who will represent you home armchair detectives is the famous columnist of Daily Variety, Miss
John Windsor.
And now, here's your host for the next half hour.
Thank you, Penn. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
You asked interrogative questions, I did too. It's gone.
What are you doing? What are you doing? Come on.
That is not paid for by them. That is paid for by the people of Detroit.
You might be qualified, ML.
I'm not qualified for this job.
Let me tell you something. You want to go right now? Okay? You want to go right now, Albert?
Hello, my good friends. It is a very dark day in the city of Detroit. Don't check the weather forecast if you're not watching us live on Facebook, or if you're listening to us after Tuesday when this is being recorded. Don't go back and check the historical record report, the weather report. We have another Detroit City Council person who is preparing this afternoon to plead guilty to public corruption. Now, the city of Detroit changed its charter, its constitution, a decade ago so that we would have the opportunity to remove people from City Hall who are not worthy to serve, who have broken the law, who have betrayed the people. And instead what we've had is a bunch of city council people who sit there and don't say anything. They don't say anything when charges come. They don't say anything when plea deals are entered. And they just might say something after a guilty plea has been entered. That's too late, my friends. That's way too late. In the case of Gabe Leland, it was 3 years too late. And afterwards, they call for ethics training. At least one council member called for ethics training. Who needs to take a class to know you can't steal? Who needs to take a class to know you can't vote for contracts that benefit your girlfriend's company? Who needs to take a class to know that the only money you should be taking as an elected official is the money that you are paid by the people of Detroit to do the job, or the money that you willfully disclosed, which is why last week on Mackinac Island, my campaign unveiled a proposal calling for financial disclosure forms, calling for conflict of interest forms, and requiring not just elected officials and top city officials to fill out these forms, but also vendors, contractors, to study these forms and sign forms indicating that they understand what our city policies are, so that what we don't have happen is someone like our guest, Michael Bellotta, former federal prosecutor, when he goes to these contractors and says, so you gave this person some money because they said they needed money for XYZ, and they say, hey, dude, I didn't know it was against the law. I'm not a public official. I'm just a guy who digs holes. I'm just a guy who pours asphalt. I'm just a guy who does XYZ. They can't say that they didn't know, because if you want to do the business with the city of Detroit, you need to know the rules of the road.
It seems ridiculous that you have to have a policy for that or a law. Because
don't we have a commandment for that? I mean,
well, Michael and I were talking earlier about a bunch of stuff, and I said it just seems like getting delivered a big bag of cash in a lot of situations just isn't a good thing or on the up and up. It seems pretty simple to me.
Yeah, so I don't mind if you have the capacity to make some money on the side. You just need to let us know so we can decide whether that's influencing you. But before we get to all this darkness, I want to...
We just got the darkness.
I know. Where are the fireworks that we heard right before we started?
We just got the darkness. And by the way, didn't the intro say this was 30 minutes? I was like, oh my God, thank fucking God.
Okay, I know where we can save 30 minutes.
Thank you, Mark.
So
what did I do?
We're setting up that template.
Yeah, so
I didn't choose it.
I want to thank you guys for having me.
Thank you, Michael. I'm glad you're here.
So, Sean, if you had studied the rundown, you would know this is the point where we we honor a 7-year-old boy who died. So thank you for stepping on that. But
No, thank
don't
you
worry
for
about
beginning with
But,
that. But yeah.
But this is, I know this is not how it's done on the Carlos and Sean podcast, but we try and set
I'm
the show
just
up.
reading the rundown here that you sent out.
Okay.
And I'm
Well, tell me
You're
about him. I
mixing
didn't
up
know
the
who he-
order,
I
but
didn't know who
that's
he was.
okay.
Does it not say, this is called a tease. This is called setting the scene. This is called giving people something to stick around for.
good. I'm glad you haven't forgotten your TV days.
Okay. In an hour and a half, we're going to have what Sean's up to. There's
Fireworks are coming back.
There's another 19 seconds I want to spare you. So when I say, Sean,
Up to
what are
anything
you
but
up to?
carrying his
That's a good
backpack.
time. That's a good time to get the cuticle
He
removers.
said, "Hey, will you hand me the orange shirt today? I want to wear orange and a base and a ski cap." So, oh yeah, right here. I've got it in your duffel bag that I'm going to carry around off your right shoulder for the rest of your life.
But by the way, my campaign handed out 500 backpacks filled with school supplies.
Cool.
You know what Sean said?
I do
I'm
love
fixing to eat these crayons. So we did. I should tell you too. We did have one box of toxic crayons. I just hope they went
Right to Sean.
kid. Yeah.
All right.
So, anyways, Martin Hushka. I want to tell you something about Martin Hushka because if you have kids, you know that they are uptight like never before. That they are filled with anxiety. That they are worried about everything. That they live a life that seems to be on the edge all the time, and it can be very taxing for a parent. It can be very stressful, obviously, for the child themselves. But Martin Hushka is a young man who died the other day at the age of 7. He was someone who people had no expectations of. When he was born, shortly after his birth, which was a joyous occasion for his parents, Robert and Amy, who Sean and I had the pleasure of working with at the Detroit Free Press, he received a diagnosis that shows that that part of his brain had either not developed or had somehow disintegrated. Now, I know that sounds bizarre. I know it sounds horrible, and I'm not a doctor, so I can't tell you exactly what happened. But basically, Martin grew up in a way that that there were no expectations of him. There wasn't even an expectation that he would live. And instead, what his parents did was they took him everywhere. They took him to parties. They took him to work. They took him on trips. This young guy probably
Soccer
traveled
games. They
more
took
than
him to
most
soccer
people
games.
did. There's Sean. Sean's here. Okay. And there were no expectations of him. And instead of feeling, and I apologize if this sounds harsh, instead of feeling like they had been cursed, like they had been robbed, like they had been burdened, Amy and Robert were two of the lovingest, most doting parents you ever met. And Robert, and I don't know if Robert's listening. If he is, I'm going to apologize in advance, was kind of a tool. Robert was kind of an uptight dude, kind of a know-it-all type.
Well, that's kind of a
polite.
Yeah, that's a harsh word, maybe.
I think that's the way a lot of people who didn't know him felt. And having Martin in his life revealed a side of Robert that people didn't know. An eloquence, a depth, a kindness, a character, a sensitivity. Having Martin unlocked the full Robert. Martin showed the whole world who Robert was, which was an incredibly kind and thoughtful man. Now, we always knew Amy was an angel, but this also opened her heart in a way that few people have the opportunity, because you always have hopes for your kids. You put pressure on your kids. You're disappointed in your kids. And these folks, at least as far as I could tell, never, ever had any regrets, any disappointments, anything like that from Martin. And the reason why I tell you all of this is because we all have people in our lives who let us down. I'm looking at one of them. I'm not looking at Sean.
That's a nice way to look at
Sorry,
the
I'm
world.
looking at Sean. I'm looking at Sean.
Stop,
But anyways,
just stop for a second. That's a nice way to look at the world as a transaction. Are you going to do something for me or not? And if you don't, you're going to let me down. Come on.
so if I could finish the sentence, you did let me down, for the record. But
Or I would finish the monologue. Okay.
but I wish I could finish the thought. But
Thanks for coming in, Michael.
Yeah. So, but what happened is we all worry about our kids, and our kids all worry about what they're going to do. The Hushka family only worried about how much time they were going to have together. And so the reason why I tell you their story is not because I love Ryan. Ryan, that's Robert's brother. Actually, I like Robert better than Ryan. So not because I want to tell you about how I feel about Robert and Amy, but because we should all be thinking about that sometimes the most important thing is just to be a part of each other's lives and to be grateful for that time that we have and not get so hung up on what are we doing and where are we going and why isn't this person doing what I think they should be doing, Sean? Why isn't this person doing what they're supposed to be doing, Sean? What is this person not doing what we talked about, Sean? And just sort of enjoy being in the presence. And so I just wanted to share that at the beginning of the show because I was at Martin's, I'm going to call it a celebration yesterday. And we've been to a lot of funerals during this campaign. It's all floods and funerals, frankly. But every time one of these things happen, it just kind of feels like you're reminded how precious life is and how much people can impact other people's lives and how much even a kid like Martin, where there were no expectations, fulfilled every hope and dream of being, unlocking love and feeling in lives. And that's pretty cool. And I wanted to mention that because I think he was a ray of light. And right now, especially looking at city council, it seems like we have a lot of bleakness.
Just to add a quick thought, because you're right.
Don't let it resonate.
I worked with Robert and Amy, and excuse me, at the Free Press.
You're the one who told me he was a tool. I always liked him.
Yeah, right. That's what I said.
Well, I'm trying to clean it up.
Trying to fix it.
Just be serious, just for a second. What was beautiful about all of this to me, and I'm
trying to clean it up by throwing Sean under the bus.
I know. I never met Martin.
Be a big bus.
I never met Martin, but obviously lots of people did. Hundreds and hundreds, maybe more than that, did. And just to paint a quick picture, he was in a wheelchair, right, when he went out. I mean, he couldn't really do much. I don't know that he didn't really speak at all, right? I mean, but he could communicate with his face, and he could laugh and giggle and so forth.
Giggle bombs.
But a lot of
Giggle
parents,
bombs.
some parents yeah, exactly. That's a great phrase. Some parents, when they have a kid like that, they bunkered down, right? Robert and Amy did not do that. They took Martin out into the world, and not just this country, but he traveled internationally. And Robert, as you know, is a huge, he would call it football, but soccer fan. And so Martin became sort of a soccer fan and went to matches all over the place. And part of the celebration of his life the last few days, especially on social media, has been from soccer clubs and football clubs from all over the place, kind of talking about Martin. It's just been a beautiful thing about how many folks he affected and touched, and it's because they shared him with the world, and weren't afraid, and that's not easy. And I always really admired that courage.
And for what it's worth, Martin could still beat Sean in a foot race.
I'm sure he could have.
So, anyways, just wanted to share that with you because I think
add-on there.
I think there's a lot of vitriol out there, and I think when
there's a lot of vitriol
special,
in here.
Yeah.
Well, just stick around,
especially before the show.
Don't go anywhere unless you feel strongly about it.
I heard ML yell like that. I got scared.
Did you?
I was going to report him to HR.
Very few people have seen angry ML. It's not pretty.
I've heard it.
It's not pretty. I don't think you have. Believe me. Just wait. It's still there. That was the first drop of lava from Vesuvius.
You just think I'm a pasty, slow, dim-witted, hippie, patchouli oil, Birkenstock wearing nothing.
That's not true. You're not dim-witted.
But I can get kind of worked up myself.
Somewhat.
My little southern,
soft-headed.
Not me.
Southern charm can.
So
fade.
As Michael was saying a minute ago, he thinks Roe O'Brien is a great place to get a vehicle. I know he's not.
Yes, I always go there.
Okay, you do? Okay, great. There we go. Trusted counselor, seeker of justice, now defender of the indicted, or even those who just are charged with an information. Michael Bellata says you should go to Roe O'Brien Ford. It's the place to go. And if he's wrong, of course, he's a lawyer, so he can defend himself against any lawsuit you might file. But I don't think that's necessary. No, he's pretty right. My mom got a red Ford Focus wagon there. It's still going strong. She's still happy. And if she's not happy, she'll hit you with a wooden spoon. So Roy O'Brien Ford is the place to go if you're looking for a new ride. They've been there for 75 years at the corner of 9 Mile and Mack in St. Clair Shores. If you don't feel like going in person, check out royobrien.com. That's ROYOBRIEN.com. And check out Fast Track, which lets you choose your vehicle and options. You can pick your deal, lease, finance, or cash, get the value of your trade-in, apply for financing, and schedule delivery of your new ride. They've got used cars, new cars. You can buy, you can lease, you can do it all at royobrien.com. If you don't feel like going online, give them a call at 888-566-5851 and let them know that you got the good word about Roy from ML here on The Soul of Detroit.
Mm-hmm.
So Michael Bellata has been sitting here patiently. In fact, he thought he was going to pick up a client here. But
thanks for inviting me to this very uplifting show.
Well, Mike, I'm glad you could make it. I know you got here early and we started late, but that's all the time we have.
Yep.
So
at least you skipped over the
Cyrus, take
Unveils,
us out.
ML unveils major policy on island. So we skipped
already
over
covered
that.
that. Thanks for being there.
He did cover that.
We did cover that. Once again, this
What was the policy?
Is this rundown print? Does this rundown print?
What was the policy?
Does it print in invisible ink in some printers?
All I heard was darkness and more councilmen are corrupt and so forth. What was the policy?
That's why he called for the policy.
So that was financial disclosure forms, conflict of interest forms, and I also want to take away city council members' free cars.
There you go.
Wow, that was quick. You did it a lot quicker this
I
time.
know. I set it up. You not congealed it. What's the word we want, Mike?
Yeah, I want to take it back. That dim-witted thing. I think that was accurate.
Oh, I'm
gonna come back on that.
Startled by your, dark eulogy.
Dark eulogy. I think I'll have to play it back. I don't know. I just can't believe you said all those horrible things about Robert. That was not cool.
That's your style. It say something and then not defer, but throw the blame somewhere else.
If they have no car,
does Carlos go through this? Does Carlos? Can both the people who've listened to the Carlos and Sean podcast tell me whether this is what happens every week? And Tad, you don't count. You have to listen to because you're the producer. Can the other person who listens to the Carlos and Sean podcast please let me know if this is how it works over there? What? No? Oh, okay. Sorry. It's the one listener who just said he left his podcast running. He didn't mean to listen to it. That's okay. So Michael, Andre Spivey, my councilman. Yes. Is going to Detroit, downtown Detroit, to the federal courthouse, and he's scheduled at 3:00 today to plead guilty to conspiracy to commit bribery. Is this a case that you worked on?
It's a case I worked on a little bit and before I left the office in April.
Tell us everything that you swore not to tell people.
I can't. I can't talk about some things, but what is interesting, I think, when you look at the charge that he's pleading to, I'll point this out. He's pleading to a conspiracy to commit bribery, which is a lesser charge, actually, than just a bribery charge, because conspiracy has a 5-year statutory maximum, whereas just a flat bribery charge has a 10-year maximum. So he's giving a break there. And then we heard from his counsel that he's been cooperating with the government for a year now. So that's also interesting.
So Michael Bellata, as a federal prosecutor, has been busting wayward public officials in Detroit for 20 years?
Yeah, about 23 years.
23 years. Damn, you don't look that old. And Spivey, so if he's getting conspiracy to commit bribery, is somebody being charged with bribery? I mean, who did he conspire with, and why isn't somebody being charged with the bribery charge?
The fact that you said that is important. Conspiracy requires another person to commit a crime, and you can't conspire with an informant. So let's say that Spivey was paid by a FBI informant, for example, then he wouldn't be charged in pleading guilty to conspiracy. So there has to be another person who committed the crime as well. So that's an astute point, even though you're wearing an orange shirt.
This is Cote d'Ivory, Didier Drogba tribute jersey. But so is the person he conspired with public official A?
Astute.
Very astute.
Yeah, very astute.
Obscure, too. Astute and obscure. I like that.
He's smart.
What was the question?
So you said he has to conspire with somebody. You can't conspire. It's sort of, you can't have a one-handed clap when it comes to corruption.
Who's the other person? Are they being charged?
Is public official A the person he conspired with, and why have they not been charged? Or is the other person he conspired with someone who set him up?
I can't answer that question as far as specific names, but I will tell you generally the fact that they charged him with conspiracy means there's somebody else that committed the crime. Now the question is, can the federal government prove that beyond a reasonable doubt? There might be still gathering evidence, and that's why you don't see that other person charged yet. And I will say things have slowed down since the pandemic, so they're still doing grand jury, I know, and so there could be something coming, sometime this year. The fact that there's an election when you're dealing with public corruption cases, you don't want to charge somebody the day of an election, but you also try not to think about that when you're deciding to bring charges, because you don't want to affect it either way. Now, if they wait to indict other people, for instance, they might get feedback against waiting, saying, hey, why didn't you tell the electorate that these people were committing crimes? Why did you wait until after the election? So it's kind of a, darned if you do, darned if you don't. And this is a podcast. Damned if you do, damned if you don't.
We're on the interweb, so you can
so
you can use some of those bad words Sean uses sometimes.
But the timing is really interesting.
The timing's interesting, but then again, this guy's been cooperating for a year, according to his attorney. So he could have been charged earlier. So what seems to be happening, just looking at it from the outside, is that whatever cooperation that he's been able to give, he's given it, because he wouldn't then go public and plead guilty, right? Mm-hmm. So everything is probably on tape now that he's been able to do. So it's just a matter of the prosecution, the assistant U.S. attorney who's assigned to the case, deciding whether they have enough to then bring charges against other individuals. Could it be Scott Benson? Could it be Janae Ayers? It could be. They obviously, there's probable cause to believe they've committed a crime, because there were search warrants served at both of their houses and their offices.
Well, that timing seems to be also interesting. I mean, Spivey's not running, but they are.
It's true. So
is that a manner of like, oh, we got to do this before the election, even though we don't want, because the FBI does not want to. I mean, we saw that with the presidential elections. They don't want to get involved.
Yeah, you don't want to get involved, but when things are ripe, when things are ready to go, you don't want to also sit on it and wait. Yeah. Because then you're trying to affect it in another way.
What did you make of the show of how it was done?
It was public, but then again, I mean, they're not going to do a search warrant at after midnight or something when everybody's not there. So it's pretty much the FBI can do search warrants of people's houses. A lot of times that'll happen and no one will know, especially when you're trying to cooperate someone. So you go and the FBI will make a soft approach, a call a lot of times. Hey, this is the FBI. We have a search warrant for your house. And then the person, if they're cooperative, will say, yeah, come on in. And the neighbors don't even know. And the FBI can show up in plain clothes and not make a big show of it. But when you're talking about FBI agents going to the city hall, to the Coleman A. Young Municipal Center, you're gonna get this show.
But when you call, do you say, and by the way, I'm around the corner, so don't bother starting fires? I mean, because it's like, I can be there in an hour. I'm like, oh shit, I got an hour to start shredding stuff.
They're usually outside.
Okay, so it's like, if you're wondering who that is on the porch, it's me, the FBI.
Exactly. Sometimes
I can put on my jacket with the big yellow letters, or I can just wear this windbreaker that says Oakland Hills Caddy Association.
Well, like in the Morocco investigation, for instance, we wanted to approach Dino Bucci, who was the bag man for Anthony Morocco. So
who's the Macomb County Public Works Commissioner, who is awaiting trial, right, on public corruption.
He is. And Dino Bucci was called by the FBI and invited to a coffee at Starbucks. And so
the feds always overpay for coffee with our tax dollars.
You
couldn't go to Tim's or Speedway.
The agents probably personally paid for it.
We'd like to see those receipts, but go ahead.
But yeah, so he was approached in a quiet way, and the reason for that is because the FBI wants to preserve the ability for that person to cooperate. If they do when they do these big shows, as you mentioned, that's pretty much the investigation's over, right? At least the covert part of it. The overt part, subpoenaing documents or bringing people to the grand jury, where everybody's tipped off, that can come secondary. So usually we get the covert stuff out of the way first, and then you move into the putting on the show and the search and all that.
So does that mean that they thought they had all the evidence they were going to get when they executed these search warrants? Or does it mean they're like, oh boy, we better get some of this other stuff before it's either destroyed, or to make sure we didn't miss something, or because our case is kind of weak and we better beef it up?
Well, the reason that you would do a search warrant as opposed to sending them a subpoena, like a grand jury subpoena, is because you are afraid that something could be destroyed, that their evidence could be, gotten rid of. So that's why they do a search warrant. If they had thought that the city council members would gladly hand over all their incriminating evidence, whatever it may be, whether it has to do with the nonprofit or potentially taking money from FBI informants. If they thought they would hand it over, they would just do a subpoena. But they obviously were afraid that they could destroy the evidence. That's why they do a search warrant.
Having worked in the public corruption unit, right, for in Detroit for the U.S. Attorney's Office, are you surprised, considering how many people have been busted in the past, that this is still going on?
No, like nothing surprises me when it comes to corruption, because when these folks get in, not these folks, when some who are inclined to commit corrupt acts, when they get in office, I've heard it said, and this goes back to another investigation, a long investigation. We don't have to name it, but it was about a 6-year investigation, and we had this public official's father on tape saying, we're gonna divide. Now that we're in office, we're gonna split up the area. We're gonna split up the city.
We got to have regular meetings to figure out how we're gonna do
exactly.
this.
So people, there's a sense of entitlement that I've seen over my years doing public corruption when it comes to, for instance, the Detroit City Council. It's like, this is their time to get paid. This is their, not everybody, but the ones that end up falling into that.
But they do get paid, and then they get caught when they commit a crime. I mean, so many of them have been caught. Is Detroit, do you think, worse than other cities with public corruption?
That's an interesting question, because...
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. But is there more corruption? We've had historically the highest number of corruption prosecutions in the country over the last, I want to say, 15 years, because we see those.
That's because the attorney's office was so good here too.
It was really good, and I'm expecting a huge decline.
And there were some good reporters in City Hall.
Yeah.
Right, but that's all gone now, so I think those numbers are going to decline.
So
sadly for my
but
business.
Detroit has had the most.
We've had the most in this district. The Eastern District of Michigan is our district, and so each district reports at the end of the year how many corruption cases they've had. And I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's been very brisk with.
But that also includes a massive Macomb County public corruption probe that went on for a long time and resulted in dozens of convictions.
But other districts are larger.
That's true.
Than the Eastern District.
Los Angeles, for instance, I used to be a federal prosecutor there. There were, 9 million people in the county of LA back in the 90s when I was there, and so we had the largest by population district in the country, but we didn't have the type of corruption cases brought. But that could be a number of things. It doesn't mean that there isn't corruption. It could be due to the fact that the FBI in LA or in whatever, pick your district, Newark, Chicago, wherever. It really, bringing cases depends on an FBI agent, and it depends on their ability to develop informants. Those two things. If you don't have that, you don't have corruption cases. But we know that they exist, because look at Macomb County. It was been corrupt forever. Anthony Morocco was there since 1987, I think, and it took.
Still unconvicted, though. We have to be clear that until he pleads or is convicted, Mr. Morocco is considered innocent.
That's absolutely right. But I believed that there was enough evidence to prove him guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. That's why I asked the grand jury to indict him. So I believe that he's committed these crimes, and it's going to be up to a jury.
So he's not going to hire you now that you're a private attorney.
I can't work on that case, darn
But he's probably mad at you.
I don't think he and I.
He's sitting there, somebody saying, "Balada!"
I would say he and I are not good. Put it that way.
Okay.
Huh.
But
what's it like to be on the other side now, leaving, fighting public corruption and now defending federal? You're a federal defense attorney, right?
Yes, I'm a federal criminal defense attorney. So what is it like? It's so different. And one of the things that I didn't count on.
Is it outrageous to have to put up with the overreach of the federal government and the evil prosecutors who are trying to take innocent people's freedom
and
away?
all the power they have?
I no longer talk to anybody at that office.
Oh, damn.
Because they do, they're on the other side now. No, it really is interesting, because you're brought in, like I'm brought into a case when someone is going through their worst moments of their life. I mean, my clients, of course, they're all good people and they didn't do it. But I mean,
sounds like podcasting.
They are good people who made bad choices, and they're counting on somebody like me who can basically tell them it's going to be okay. This is a temporary situation, and this is what we need to do.
And it'll be over in 30 years. Just
no, not necessarily. But I mean, being able to do that, to help people that way and make a living that way, I found it so far, and I'm really early into this because it's only been since April. but I find that very rewarding. As a prosecutor, I was working for the public good, and I didn't have any individual person, so I could say, yeah, this is great for the city of Detroit that certain people are being held accountable. But in this case, in doing defense work, you're actually helping individual people, and you're not trying to get over on the system. You're helping them understand that it's not as bad as they think, and you're bringing a level of intelligence to the situation because you know what they're doing on the other side. You know what the government's going to do, and you can anticipate things. And it gives people a lot of comfort in a really, really tough time. And it's not just the people that commit the crime or allegedly commit the crime. It's all the family members, the kids, everybody gets affected. We saw that in some of our big cases in Detroit.
So do you feel that there were times when you were a prosecutor, and I know you're a very aggressive prosecutor, that you had a very high sense of moral outrage, which I respect, that you would be just completely furious at people who had betrayed the public trust, and now you meet their successors in mischief, and you're like, oh, these guys aren't so bad. They got a dog.
I would reframe.
They plant roses.
Yeah, I would reframe that a little bit. I don't think I was ever furious at the people. That's a bit of an overstatement. I think that I was disappointed, and I would be disappointed in my client too that they did these things. But that doesn't mean their life is over. That they need to have somebody that can represent them intelligently and get and basically bring a just result that's not taking advantage of them in their situation, being at the lowest point of their life.
Damn.
Do you
that happened fast. I remember you want to get these bums. Now they're not so bad.
Well, now they're human. That's not always so easy for Mike to see.
No.
They were always human. It's always bittersweet as a prosecutor. When someone gets convicted, they have family members out there, even I won't talk about one particular case, but there's lots of cases out there that where you watch the family members. And when I used to do murder cases when I was in LA doing gang murder cases in the 90s, I was just as sad for the defendant's family because I did a lot of teenagers who were in gangs.
Yeah, no one wins.
And nobody freaking wins, and the families, sometimes I saw the families on both sides get together and console each other. It's amazing. It's all loss.
That seems like it would be very, very hard to prosecute gang murders. To get people to talk?
Yeah, it's really hard to get people to talk because their life literally depended on it. But a lot of times doing gang cases, if you move the witness to a different part of LA County, that's all you had to do. You didn't have to put them in the witness protection program. They would feel more comfortable. But just finding someone on this who witnessed a crime in the neighborhood that wants to come and testify is almost impossible. So a lot of times
you're not going to move them, right?
A lot of times you use like fellow gang members who are in the car during the drive-by, and they might have a crime that they're trying to work off, and they're going to cooperate with you. And sometimes you just go with prior inconsistent statements and just build a case circumstantially too. Those are tough cases.
Do you consume a lot of true crime? I mean, do you like?
He's written some.
I do.
I remember that.
Crime.
Yeah,
no, that was
fiction. You wrote a book.
But do you keep up on other jurisdictions, or just it's your job, but is it also? Are you intrigued by all that stuff?
I am intrigued by it. I'm intrigued by it. I love Dateline. I listen to that stuff all the time driving around.
Because there's some pretty interesting cases. Can I pick your brain about?
Absolutely. Right now we're in just a golden little time frame here with interesting cases.
Well, R. Kelly gets convicted, right?
Yep.
Yesterday, and I think a lot of people were surprised that they were RICO charges, federal RICO charges, but he was the only defendant. Did that surprise you, having prosecuted RICO charges before?
No, it didn't surprise me that they charged RICO, because that RICO is a federal law that you could use when you have a lot of bad conduct over a long period of time. RICO is the perfect charge because you don't have to worry about statute of limitations. You don't have to worry about only going back 5 years. You can go back as long as you can find.
Is that the spirit of that law of racketeering? I mean,
well,
he's a pedophile.
It was written to deal with the mob. It was written to deal with organized crime. But it's been used in lots of different contexts, in public corruption cases. For instance, it's been used civilly. People can sue other people civilly and allege RICO. So it's used in all kinds of different contexts, but I think in this case it actually fits perfectly since R. Kelly did have people helping him. From what I've read in the news accounts, he had this organization that supported, Rob's rules basically getting these young girls to do, just completely humiliating things.
But as a prosecutor, wouldn't you want to go after those people too, or is it just no? You want to get the head?
Yeah, you would want to go after them. Absolutely would. Just like they're going after Ghislaine Maxwell.
With Jeffrey Epstein.
Which I almost mispronounced the first name.
Well, yeah. I think I know a show that's at fault for that.
Yes, but you want to do that. But the one thing that people would always ask me, like in my cases, is why don't you prosecute this person? This person paid the bribe. But a lot of times you don't know that. You don't have that information until you talk to the person under what we call immunity.
Oh, okay.
And so what probably happened in the R. Kelly case is a lot of these enablers were subpoenaed to the federal grand jury and they would only agree to testify if they had immunity because they would have lawyers that would tell them that. And so they would provide necessary testimony for the government, and what they would get in return is not be prosecuted.
Now, another case that's really huge right now is Gabby Petito, the disappearance, subsequent murder of her. Were you surprised how long it took to get a warrant for him, and then for Brian Laundrie, and that the warrant was specifically about using her credit card?
That's right. They didn't get a warrant for murder.
Or should they have been watching him, in your opinion?
They should have been watching him. I would think that I was surprised that he was able to, while they're still looking for the body, that they didn't have surveillance on his house. That was a mistake in my view. In federal cases, when we're about to do, a takedown, we have what they call the SOG, the surveillance unit of the FBI, on those people every day. We want to know where they're going, what they're doing. I would imagine that they did some of that, but he obviously slipped through the cracks.
How in God's earth would he be defended? How is he going to be defended in this? I mean, because every step along the way doesn't really help his case.
No. I would think in his case, they're going to probably find DNA. I know that they went back to the house to get additional DNA material that they're going to compare to probably items at the crime scene that they found, items DNA from her body. It's a little bit harder in this case because they were together, they're dating, it's not a stranger situation. Yeah. So
DNA will be everywhere.
DNA will be everywhere, but we don't know, at this point we don't know the cause of death. We know it was ruled a homicide, but we don't know how, was it strangulation? Is there some, DNA related to that? We just don't know. It's amazing what they can do with technology now that they couldn't do just 10 years ago. So we'll see what they find out. But yeah, it'll be a difficult case, I would imagine, to defend because he has the motive. We know that because they had a up and down, a very, very rocky relationship. We saw that on the tapes with when she was fighting with Brian and the police were called. We saw that with, I guess there was a 911 call saying that Brian Laundrie was slapping Gabby Petito. So there's lots of motive there. There's opportunity, galore. He's with her in this little transit van.
Oh, I mean, in my opinion, the guy's so guilty. But I wanted to ask you, do we, as the public watching something like this, do we make too much out of people not cooperating with an investigation, or is that a huge, massive red flag?
To me, it's a huge, massive red flag. It's just common sense.
I think so too.
You're with somebody, they disappear. You just drive back without them.
I mean,
it's not even your car.
Just in general,
I've been left behind. Hey, can we take a break from the soul of not Detroit for just a minute to do a little?
I thought this was Dateline
business. It was Dateline. It's just.
Sorry, when you get into true crime, I can go all day with him.
Well, let's stop that.
Okay.
Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about the Caju Cafe.
No, I got yelled at, Sean.
Sponsors. No, you were very gently rebuked for hosting the soul of a place I don't really care about. We have our friend John Rutherford, who's one of the patrons over at the Caju Cafe, co-owner there, your host. He's encouraging you to book your holiday feather bowling parties and family gatherings right now because dates are filling up. If you've never been to the Caju Cafe, It's a delightful slice of old world joy. Belgian specialties, but all kinds of great food and beer. They have live music almost every night at their outdoor beer garden. They also have music indoors, sometimes at the same time, which is pretty wild. You can see 2 acts on the same night. There's also Muscle Beach, the outdoor beer garden near the garage bar. Inside, one of the only places, maybe in the world, that you're going to find feather bowling. You can book a feather bowling party at CajuCafe.com. Give them a call. Get your name in there. Great for friends, corporate parties, you name it, during Thanksgiving, during Christmas. They've renovated the feather bowling lanes, so they're big, bright, airy. Lots of good places to put your beer and your food as you do a sport that is almost impossible to describe. Think of it as bocce ball with feathers and big wood things that look like cheese wheels. I know, you can't really picture that. Just book your stay at the Caju Cafe. You won't regret it. And when you call John, tell him that ML sent you because maybe he'll save a beer for me. Mark, anybody else who's doing some good work out there for the good people of the world that we should probably be helping connect them with?
Well, yeah, of course. Hall Financial. Duh. I mean, isn't that a given?
Is the interest rate still around 2%?
I think they're the lowest they've been all year, and that's why you should check out Hall Financial. Just go to ML Solar Detroit's our website.com and click on the link to get started, or you can call them at 248-308-5000. Tell them that we sent you. They have over, I think it's over, what, 6,000 5-star reviews? I mean, the 5-star reviews just keep piling up. And you want to be able to understand your financial situation. They can help you, get you, a better mortgage, save you some money. Once again, 248-308-5000. Tell them ML sent you. The NMLS number is 1467435.
And call Dan Morrison. Tell him, Dan, what are you doing, man? Give me a better deal.
Put him to work for you.
He'll do it.
Take a lot of money.
If he can't, that James Bentley fellow might be available.
He's adequate.
So, yeah. And if you're looking to make some money so you can buy yourself a crib, or maybe just, tighten up your finances so you look a little better when you go through the approval process, Dave Hubbard at the Butchery is still hiring. This is a place where you can get prime meats and eats. They are closed on Monday and Tuesday, but they're open the rest of the week. They have some amazing prime cuts. They also have some fantastic, unique grocery items. And then the desserts made by Chef Julie will keep you coming back for more. They are looking for help. Yes, they are one of many places that has a great job opportunity for you. If you're looking for a great place to work with great people, great salary and opportunities, go to The Butchery SL. That's thebutcherysl.com. Or you can give them a call at 248-682-2697. That's 682-COWS. Thebutcherysl.com. Tell Chef Dave that we're going to be over there real soon to get some good grub. And maybe you'll even be working there. So get your resume into Chef Dave, and don't wait anymore. The stimulus money's gone. It's time to get back out there in the workforce. Come on, get your life together, man. Right, Mark?
Sounds good. Okay. All right, I found a true crime story.
Yeah? No? Okay.
I found a true crime story closer to Detroit that I wanted to ask you about.
Okay, then I got to get back to Detroit corruption for a minute.
Well, you can go there first if you want.
No. Let's get this out of the
2 years wasn't enough. Yeah. So, keep going. God forbid that a guest comes in and talks about something interesting.
Sean's still here? I thought he was applying at the Butchery.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Bellata, that he had
to
suggest that wasn't interesting because it wasn't, part of the geography of this lovely city.
This is the soul of Detroit, and we do have quite a bit of corruption here that may actually affect people's lives. But
that's a metaphor, right? The soul of Detroit is the soul of life.
Hey,
talk about whatever we
deep.
Well, I guess I didn't know the metaphor extended to Utah, but that's cool.
Oh, it extends to anywhere there's oxygen.
Oh,
so there you go.
Okay, let me be quiet for a little while so I can.
Well, no, go the corruption stuff. I mean, that's near and dear.
Yeah,
go for that.
Yeah,
no. Let's
don't talk about true crime anymore, Mark.
It's very rare that we have a prosecutor turn federal criminal defense attorney.
No,
so many things.
Let's get back to the Scott, whatever his name is, who dated somebody else and buried their wife in cement and threw him in a lake or something.
Oh, that story. I'm kind of bored. That story's pretty much done now.
Okay.
I know that wasn't even what we were talking
You're
about.
right. People don't care about that kind of stuff at all. So.
Sean, I didn't see you chiming in. You seemed almost as bored as I was. But
No, I was trying to be polite.
It could be your natural
You were just
state.
laying in weeds until you rise up with the Uzi and take out the guests for somehow getting out over 8 Mile. Thanks a lot.
There was a really sad story about 4 people that went to party at a hotel.
There's 4 people who did a podcast together. It's a tragedy.
in Auburn Hills. And
hey, we're getting closer. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
told you I was getting closer.
I know.
This is kind of a big story, and the kid was just. So what happened? 4 guys get together to party. One guy shows up with what he thought were Percocets. Turns out they were laced with fentanyl. 3 people died. He, I believe, was in critical condition, in a coma, but got out of it, recovered, and was just sentenced for providing fentanyl-laced Percocet. And I just felt, I can't remember exactly how long he was sentenced for, but
Was it like 6 years or something?
Yeah, it seemed a little, to me personally, and it's maybe be an unpopular opinion because it involves drugs and 3 people dying, it seemed a little heavy-handed. And I didn't know why. Is that because it involves, fentanyl, which seems to be a story that everybody is aware of, and the dangers of street drugs? Or I just couldn't figure out, why would he be charged and sentenced for so many years?
Yeah, fentanyl right now is the main killer when you're talking about narcotics. People are overdosing on it. Famous people we've seen overdose and die on.
And they're worth more.
It gets the attention and the imagination of everyone.
Michael K. Williams had fentanyl in his system.
Yes, Michael K. Williams, and was it Scott Whalen also?
Yeah, he did.
Philip Seymour Hoffman, was that something that was laced or no?
I don't think it was laced. I just think he did a lot of Xanax combined.
Sorry, that's New York though. Let's get back here to
back to Auburn Hills. Were you surprised he was charged and sentenced so harshly?
I wasn't surprised because the fact that he was the one who provided the drugs, the Percocets, to his 3 other friends, and that resulted in their death. But I agree with you, Mark, that I think that the sentence, I think it was like 6 to 15 or something like that, in that range. I thought that was very high because, he very likely was an innocent buyer of these Percocets. Yeah. He thought he was going to share some Percocets and have them himself. He took them himself.
He's in the hospital.
It wasn't like he was the dealer who knew it was fentanyl. He couldn't, he had to step on it or add fentanyl, like a lot of times they have to do to heroin. People do that because it's cheap, it's synthetic, and it's cheap. And so, if he didn't know it, and he was just buying it, without any knowledge there was fentanyl in it. I don't know why he would be sentenced or he should be sentenced to longer. In prison. That seems wrong.
It's a tough story to tell that to the 3 victims' families, right?
Yeah, a lot of times I think victims' families, they want justice for their lost loved one. And sometimes you see them, victims' families, actually have compassion for the person that's charged. And I think in this case, they should, because...
Couldn't they go after the dealer, the guy he bought it from, or another step up? I don't know.
And it's hard sometimes to go up. Who knows who the person who's charged bought it from. Could have been, sort of a nameless, faceless person. But if they could go up, that should be the target. It should be the person who knowingly provided, fentanyl. Because that's akin to, playing Russian roulette with someone else's life.
Mike, I have a question for you.
I have an answer.
I'm sorry.
The
other Mike?
Sorry.
That's why I do the ML thing, because everybody is a Mike.
Okay. That's I've
You
never
can
heard
stick
that.
with sir.
I've never heard that explanation, but that's fine.
I was on a hockey team with 14 guys, and 4 of us were named Mike.
How about this? Do you want to ask Mr. Bellata?
Bulldogs 20th century, 20th anniversary. Come see us at the Troy Sports Center Sunday nights.
Yeah, that sounds great. Bulldogs. So, do you want to ask Mr.
2
Bellata?
goals, 2 games, 2 goals for your captain.
That's the important part.
Pop the water ball in the first game of the season, for what it's worth. I didn't see that in the sports section.
I see a smile over
What's
there.
going
I'm not
on?
sure if is this a Daytona a little bit?
No.
On here?
Are you asking about
Are you
public official A? I thought he came up about an hour ago.
No, I thought you were talking about why you have an interesting question. I thought you were going to ask Mr. Bellata why politicians sell themselves.
I diverted too much from
so
the rundown.
cheaply.
Is there a missing body somewhere? Did somebody leave a bike somewhere in Zanesville, Ohio, that we can talk about?
Oh, you don't like true crime stories?
Winesville.
Do you not follow true crime?
Winesville, Ohio.
I am of the opinion that there's enough true crime conversation on every other podcast on the face of the earth. I'm more interested in local real crime that affects people here, but that's okay. We can talk about it. We have a guest who has an expertise that we rarely have on
Yeah,
this
so
show.
why use it?
Sean, I believe you had a question. And not the existential one of why am I here?
Oh, you mean why am I here? No, because you wanted me to come, I guess, a long time ago. I don't know that you still do, but no. Do politicians sell themselves cheaply? You've got that here. I think it's interesting. I think you want
That's
to
a good
talk about it with Mr. Bellotta.
So to set this up,
There you go.
if I may, Andre Spivey, our councilman who's pleading guilty today, scheduled to plead guilty. He and this public official A corruptly accepted over $35,000 in bribe payments, according to the charging documents, and we hear all the time Monica Conyers took a few $100s. You know, other people have been accused of taking 17 pounds of sausage as part of a bribe deal, and I hear it said all the time. Why do these officials sell themselves so cheap? But one of the things that I've seen over the years and that I share with people is that you guys only charge them with some of what you found them to do. Or is that not quite right? I mean, like Ted Bundy wasn't charged with 50 murders. He was charged with one because one was enough to put him in prison for life. I mean, are we to believe that some of these other people, it wasn't just $35,000? Because we often see at sentencing that they copped all kinds of stuff that they were never charged with.
Ted Bundy doesn't live in Detroit.
I don't think the city.
He was in
council
Ann
people
Arbor for a little while, though.
eat other people, so that's.
But that's not Detroit. Oh,
Close
so you
enough.
want to go there? No, you don't. Not really, do you?
Thank
Let's
you
do
for
it.
saying what
Come
I was
on.
thinking.
If you got something on your chest other than some gray hair, let's
No,
have
here's
it.
the only thing I'm going to say.
We're in Milwaukee right now, aren't we?
No. Here's the only quick thing I'm going to say.
I'm in hell.
Mike and I had
Oh, God.
a conversation, and I'm not going to go into it here.
Yeah, that's a
But-
good idea.
But the only point I'm going to make
What's
is
that
that
Luke Nowacki say about
Just let me
the-
say this. Damn it. Sometimes stuff is organic and it comes out like it just
Like
did with you. That's all I'm going to say.
Language.
Like it just did with you.
So we can talk later about how that's not
No, let's talk
analogous,
now.
But
No, that's organic.
Michael. So you're embarrassed. I'm sorry. We're moving on. Michael, is it a case that people in Detroit, politicians in Detroit who are caught in bribery schemes, sell themselves cheap, or are you just charging them on the most red line violation of the law?
A.
Wow,
Choice
short
A.
question.
Choice A is the answer.
They sell themselves cheap?
Monica Conyers had a vote on a 10-year sledge hauling contract worth $1.2 billion for Synagro Corporation. And she wanted Rayford Jackson to bring her an iced tea.
What?
She did. She asked for that on the wiretap. She wanted a couple $1,000s here, a couple $1,000s there. That's what she wanted. I mean, absolutely. It's ridiculous. It's absurd.
But the
There's
Free
no-
Press also reported that she and Sam Riddle orchestrated a payment of more than $20,000 from someone who had a pension deal when she served on the pension board, and she was never charged with that. But that's real money. That's big money.
But not big compared to the pension fund. I mean, the pension fund is billions of dollars. So the money that
But I'm saying there were a lot of things they did that they were never charged with.
if someone's not charged with something, it could be for a variety of reasons. It could be because it was old. It could be more than 5 years old. It could be that there's not enough evidence of that. But to say that that the prosecutor's office, the U.S. Attorney's office, just charges the bare bones or just what they feel like they need to charge, that's not the case. If there's,
Right, I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying that you've got one instance here with Councilman Spivey that you've laid out, or that the federal government has laid out. And my question is, and I don't know the answer, is are there other cases where he has like a rate where if you want some cooperation, it's this much money, and you don't need to charge him or investigate all these other cases to their logical conclusion because you've got one bright line violation. That's enough to take somebody out of City Hall because they're not a good actor. And you may have heard or looked at other things and just said, well, you know, we could probably follow that through. Or we heard this or we looked at that, but we got what we need right here to make an ironclad case, and we're going to do that. And that's enough. And this other stuff we heard, because as we just talked about, Monica Conyers took money from Rayford Jackson, who I recently saw at a funeral, by the way. He still looks fantastic. But she also was taking money from someone who had a deal for the pension board. I mean, you only charged her with the one. It doesn't mean she's not cutting side deals here, there, and everywhere else.
That's right. I mean, there's definitely going to be other acts that aren't charged. Keep in mind too, to even open an investigation, you have to have predication, and what that means is there has to be two sources telling you that that public official is committing a crime. So sometimes those other sources are talking about other events, and then eventually they'll work in a undercover FBI agent or use an informant and get the bribe on tape. One thing in bribery cases that the government likes to have is a videotape. It makes convicting a lot easier, and juries expect solid evidence. If you just had one person say, "Yeah, he gave me," and we had that in the Kilpatrick case. But
and the Bates case, in the Lonnie Bates case, you had somebody saying that I basically bribed him, but he didn't use the exact word bribe. The jury couldn't hear that, and that was one of the charges that Bates beat. And Bates is a former East Side City Councilman, for those who don't know.
Yeah, we called him Two Lunch Lonnie. That was Lonnie Bates. Alonzo Bates, he would have contractors take him out to lunch. He would order his lunch, and then before he left, he would order a second lunch to take with him.
To go.
That's how he earned that name, rightfully so.
I don't blame him.
Two Lunch Lonnie.
Two Lunch Lonnie.
That's a good move.
But
Someone's buying.
That was a case where you had a witness who testified, said, I was told if I didn't do this, I wouldn't get this. Or if I wanted this, I had to do this. But you didn't have the electronic evidence, and the jury just said, sorry, Mike, I got to have more. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but I'm just wondering, do we have an issue here where politicians, it's not that they only took $100 and so they went to prison for taking $100. It's that they took $100 from a lot of people, and when you add up a lot of $100 payoffs, you get to real money, but you only made the case on one of those payoffs because that's all you needed to do.
Yeah, I don't buy that.
Okay, so this man sold himself and threw his career away for...
Well, I'll explain why I don't buy that. Because if there were other people that
I'm genuinely asking, because I mean, I wouldn't give myself away for $100,000, let alone a few $1,000s, but we seem to see this happen all the time.
150.
If I do, I'll call you.
200?
And when I call you, I'll just say, I'm not calling a lawyer, I'm calling somebody to shoot me in the face, because I'd rather die than cheat the people of Detroit, which I think makes me stand out from some of the other people in City Council.
Okay.
So why do you feel that way then?
Oh, because if there were other people saying that I paid a bribe, and the FBI could get them to say that in the grand jury or even in an interview, those charges would be tacked on if they were within 5 years, because you could always have more evidence. It's better because it tends to show a pattern. And so, yeah, he'd be charged. If there were other provable charges, he'd be charged with them, is what I'm saying. There's a reason that he's not charged with more, either because he didn't do any other crimes or because they couldn't be proven.
Or because he cooperated, and so he's getting a little break.
It's possible.
And don't you also tell people before the case goes to a deal, it's like, any other thing else we need to know about? Anything else you told us about? Because if we find out from somebody else the deal's over, we're going to blow you up. You're going to be real sorry. This is the time to lay it all on the table.
That's right. We had that happen with the Rizzo case. We had Chuck Rizzo, who was the CEO of Rizzo Environmental Services, and he was cooperating with us, and he was tape recording bribe payments to Dean Reynolds, a trustee with Shelby Township,
Clinton Township.
Sorry.
That was another time you guys charged somebody during an election, and it cost that guy his election. So, I mean, there is a precedent for the feds bringing charges during election season. It's not just here in Detroit.
I think he still did pretty well, although he didn't.
No, I think he got beat.
Yeah, but he did. People still voted for him. And again, we tried not to coincide
the jury did not vote for him, as I recall.
But wait, what were we talking about? Now I lost my train of thought.
Well, I didn't. A quick question.
Rizzo cooperated. He was recording stuff, and then...
Yeah, so Rizzo is somebody who didn't tell us everything. You asked about that. What do you do when that happens? And talk about shooting yourself in the foot or in the face. He did that to himself because we found out during his cooperation that he had been untruthful about other crimes that he committed, and he was still stealing money from his company. Because he didn't really own Rizzo Environmental Services. After a point, it was owned by an equity firm in New York City, and so he was stealing from the investors, basically, and he was doing that while cooperating. If that happens, then that cooperation is blown up. What happened to Chuck. He ends up doing 6.5 years in prison, which he could have done nothing, or a year, or something really low had he continued to cooperate. So yeah, that does happen, and deals get blown up.
I have a quick question, a deep question, if I may, Mike Elric.
That's my favorite kind.
Yeah, do whatever you want, brother.
So
I've seen that.
The nickname Lonnie, Two Lunch,
Two Lunch Lonnie.
Two Lunch Lonnie, was that influenced at all by Jimmy Two Times from Goodfellas?
I think he predated Goodfellas, didn't he? The Bates case.
It's an old case, man. He was out. He was out.
That was my favorite.
he
That
was
was
out
my
mowing
favorite
his lawn.
mobster in that movie. Jimmy Two Times.
Yeah.
He was mowing his lawn on City Time. He was on videotape
Remember that,
by Scott Lewis.
Yep.
Scott Lewis and Bill Gallagher caught him too.
Yeah, so he goes way back. So probably predated.
Late 90s. Yeah.
Supposed to be working at the
That was a deep
recreation
question, though.
department.
That was a deep question.
That's what I know.
Here's something also
Definitely.
that's deep. On 696 on the way in this morning, there was a push lawnmower overturned on just right there, nothing.
Wow.
And then you're talking about mowing the lawn. So I know that's a non sequitur. Mike, you know what that means.
Can you use the bloop?
Can we edit?
No, I'll add it in.
The show's starting to run a little long. Okay.
I wonder why.
So something
my
about,
fault.
Something about lawnmowers and somebody in Utah.
It wasn't Utah. Thanks for following the story.
Yeah.
That's how much interest I had in him. I'm sorry. But
Was it Florida?
He's in the Florida is where he is now. Yeah.
Yes, it's always Florida.
Wyoming. Huh?
we'll make it all about you, Utah.
And Tetons.
Johnny Utah, did you ever watch that movie?
Boy, this is non sequitur hour.
Point Break, yes.
The remake or
a great
the
movie.
original?
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
it's a great movie.
I was
Quarterback Punk. That's what I remember. Gary.
and Lori
Busey.
Petty was his.
Yeah, it's always about that, isn't it?
His entree into the gang.
Yes.
With Bodie. Okay, and you know who else was in there? Anthony Kiedis.
He was.
And Flea.
Flea was in there too. Yeah, right.
Oh, right. And also the Big Lebowski. So Michael, we are running long because you've been involved in a lot of cases, a lot of interesting stories. Is there anything that you can tell us now that you couldn't tell us about the Gabe Leland case, the Monica Conyers case, Lonnie Bates, Kay Everett, while you were a prosecutor and while they still had yet to be fully adjudicated, which means, Sean?
No, go ahead.
Adjudicated in full.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I want to talk, if I could, a second about Gabe Leland because I've heard some speculation about why the case was not prosecuted federally.
Yeah, I mean, the guy orchestrated a bribe and he doesn't do a minute in jail. Bellotta, were you on the defense side by then? What's going on, man?
It looks that way, doesn't it? No.
Gabe Areno should be in a box right now, counting the days until he's free, and they should be many days.
So this was not some kind of sweetheart deal that we decided to give to Gabe Leland to let him plead guilty in state court. The problem that we had was one of we had a particular witness named Bob Carmack.
I know the man.
Maybe familiar with his work.
Mm-hmm. Maybe familiar with his banners flying over events throughout the metro area.
And so just the idea of him as our primary witness, and can you imagine the jury's out deliberating and he's flying banners over, saying Leland's guilty or something. I mean, we don't know what he was had some issues. We had some issues with.
But he had some video too, right? Isn't the video of these meetings with Leland and with Leland's emissary? Isn't the video the witness really not Bob Carmack? And you just put Bob on the stand and say, Bob, did you shoot this video? He says, yeah, I did. And you go, okay, roll tape.
Yeah, but there were other things.
Was the video no good?
The video was good, but there were other things that we needed to rely on his credibility for and to really prove the case that we thought. And so it worked out really well that he was willing to leave the office, plead guilty to a felony, and, wrap his case up in state court. That was something we worked out, and it was not because we were trying to give him a deal. It was because of the strength of the evidence, and particularly the witness, and also the fact that the money that we're talking about here was campaign money. So it's not the typical.
Well, it wasn't campaign. It didn't end up in his campaign account. I mean, they sold it as campaign money, but
it was for his campaign.
Do you guys know that he spent it on his campaign? Do we have any receipts?
I can't talk about grand jury material, but there is, like I say, it was based on the evidence. So I'd like to dispel that rumor that he was treated differently for whatever reason than other city council members, because he really wasn't. It was just the strength of the evidence was not there for that case.
But he was treated differently than other defendants in public office because you made Eric Smith resign when it was the Macomb County prosecutor, it was proved that he was getting funny with campaign money. But Gabe Leland was never forced to resign, and Gabe Leland was allowed to serve on city council for many months, maybe a year or more, and to vote on major things. Like he voted on a $250 million bond proposal when you guys knew that he was a crook. That seems like he was treated differently than some other folk.
No, he wasn't treated differently. He had an attorney that had him in a different posture. He was going to fight the case. He was not agreeing to leave. Eric Smith's situation was much different. His attorney was.
So he just rolled over.
And not that he rolled over, but that he saw the writing on the wall, and he decided that was in his best interest to plead guilty and to resign as part of the plea agreement. So they're just two different things.
Now, if I could just make one suggestion on the Eric Smith case, and I know it's
nuance is not always his thing.
I know it's too late to do anything like this, but if Eric Smith ever gets in trouble again, can you tell him you do not wear a shirt and a tie and a sweater under a jacket? If you're cold, wear an overcoat.
That's sort of judgy, no?
Yeah, just saying. Just saying.
I have to just out myself on this one point that I have worn lots of sweater vests.
Yeah.
It's different. That's like
I actually look forward to fall because it's sweater vest season.
I'm a hoodie guy.
My wife thinks I'm the biggest loser. So.
Under a suit coat?
She's like, you are not wearing that. You look like Mr. Rogers. No, you're not going to come back to this house.
Have you done it under a suit coat?
There you go. An admission of guilt from the prosecutor.
Good for you.
Finally beat it out of him. God, if you just said that in the beginning, we could have skipped that whole case in Colorado.
Oh, now it's Colorado. By the way, I do have one last question for you.
Is this a deep one?
No, it's not. I don't think so. You mentioned before the show that you had listened to the podcast a little bit, trying to get the vibe.
Yeah.
So is that vibe? So what do you think of the vibe now that you've actually been in it?
I'm still trying to get it.
Hostility?
Thanks for remembering that Michael was a guest early in the show. He was here a couple of years ago, Sean.
No. He said he'd listened. He'd forgotten.
Recently, yeah.
It was so memorable a couple of years ago that he had to go back and listen to the podcast to try to get the vibe.
I don't think that's going to get
If you're on time, you heard that. What? Huh? Why were you late today? Just out of curiosity.
Because I was seeking justice for the people.
Okay, yeah. Me too. That's why I was late.
Perhaps being involved in an endeavor that may lead someone to hire Mr. Bellotta to defend them, but we'll see how deep it goes.
Ooh.
Oh, that's interesting. Good tease.
Hey, good tease for your future felony conviction. That's awesome.
Wanted to talk about money, by the way, and investing. Because overreaction is not the strategy you want for a long-term investor. We should all be long-term investors.
And
right?
if you make that money, do not buy it don't buy a sweater vest and a jacket and put it together.
No, make sure.
If you want to, I guess it's okay.
I mean, if you get handed a big bag of cash, maybe you want to invest it. Yeah. If it's legal, get that paper trail.
Yeah, don't blow it on a sweater combo, I guess. That's what Mike says. Mike Elrick, sorry.
Call our buddy Luke Nowacki at Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748 for rational financial advice. He'll point you in the right direction. Equities, bonds, 401ks, 529s, anything with numbers, he's going to figure it out for you. Get advice, get a strategy. Call Luke, Pinnacle Wealth, 248-663-4748.
Because when you call Luke Nowacki, he will make it all about you, sweetheart.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Royal Alliance Associates Inc. Member FINRA SIPC. Royal Alliance Associates Inc. is separately owned, and other entities and/or marketing names, products, or services referenced here are independent of Royal Alliance Associates Inc.
Oh man, the geeks have inherited the earth.
Did I do that?
What a dork.
Does him wanting to play with us again mean that he's turning into a geek, or we're turning into cool guys?
Tyler Bertuzzi, you're a geek of the week.
I wrote a column about him the other day.
I thought there was a point in there. I read the whole thing. I'm still not sure. Because when you're a good teammate, you're there for every game. When you're a good teammate, you don't expose the people you work with, the people you play with, to injury or harm. And because this guy has an unfounded fear of a vaccine that's been proven to be safe and has been fully approved by the feds, he is going to miss all the games in Canada. He's going to potentially expose people.
9 of them.
To, if you're in the playoffs, 9 games is pretty big. When you're the last All-Star the Red Wings had, 9 games is pretty significant. When you missed a whole year, we'd like to have the 9 games. And by the way, is he going to give back his salary for those 9 games? I sure as hell hope so, because he ain't working.
His body, his choice.
So, yeah, that's, guess what? You got to get the measles vaccine if you want to go to school. So, and guess what else the choice is? He wants to be a professional athlete. He wants to be a good teammate. You do the right thing. You get the shot. You show up for work every day.
Hey, the point that I wrote, I don't know about your reading skills, your comprehension
I know
skills.
there's more points than a compass.
Well, sometimes you want to layer stuff up a little bit.
But just there's 360 degrees on a compass. Can you limit yourself to 360 points in your column?
King of the 30-minute questions. No, my point, real quickly, the main point was that he
Real
gets
quickly
to
would have been
play.
a good idea when you wrote it.
He gets to play in front of fans this season. Why? Because security guards, ushers, all the front office staff, marketing people, all the people in that organization are vaccinated, because all of his teammates are vaccinated, and because half the fans or more are going to be vaccinated. So we can have somewhat of a normal world because everybody else is taking the shot, or a lot of other people, and therefore he doesn't have to.
I got all that, but I didn't understand why at the end of the column you let him off the hook. That's why he's our geek of the week.
What do you mean let him off the hook? I said, how are you going to change somebody's mind? How's that letting? I'm not going to change his mind.
Tyler
I said,
Bertuzzi calls his own shots.
What you tell him is you want to be a good teammate. Do what you got to do to be in the game.
Right.
That's the bottom line.
I do. There's many reasons to get vaccinated, but for him, that's kind of why I would have done it at the very least, just because you're part of a team.
Exactly.
And you also have the top-notch medical attention that most of us don't
Aside
have.
fr-
So if there's
aside
any
from that, no,
danger,
I mean,
it's
he's got-
no danger.
He's got
Enough of this already. Get your shots. Bertuzzi.
There's an all-night party in room 7609.
La la la. La 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 la.
And you can dance together all night if you've got the time.
What do you got for us today?
By the way, when we do our summer skate in Troy, when Tyler Bertuzzi was a young guy, he would be on the ice before we took the ice.
That's great. He worked hard. So I did have a point. You just didn't like it because you thought I let him off the hook.
I thought you laid it out beautifully. Everybody else is doing what they're supposed to do, so you can do what you're handsomely paid to do.
Exactly. That was
and he
my
wasn't willing to
point.
do it, but you didn't end it with, so do it!
No, I ended it with a much more realistic idea of here's a guy's willing to give up because they're going to dock him. His salary's going
they?
to get prorated. Yeah.
Are they?
So he's going to give up
Fantastic.
a couple $100,000.
Good.
I would
So
assume.
can we send that couple $100 grand to first responders
So
for people who are dying because
he
they're
knows
trying
he's going to get ridiculed, right? And
This
he
week's
did.
selection is Bjork with Human Behavior. Sorry, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying he if you're willing to get ridiculed to some degree, which he is clearly, and you're willing to give up several $100,000, how are you going to change somebody's mind who's willing to do that?
You
That
tell
was the
them
point.
We got rules on the team.
But
If you
Elric
wanna
would
be a
say,
part
get
of
the
this-
shot, get the shot. And then Bertuzzi's going to go out and get the shot. Okay, great.
Good. Then that's 9 more games we got. Instead, he's indulging in some very risky human behavior.
I do like Bjork.
that, Sean? Your mic's on.
It goes right over you. I don't know. I thought the song was still playing. I took a walk around the block and I came back and it was still playing.
Oh, that was a short song. But I'm dying to hear the justification.
I'm a slow walker.
As to how that fits into New Wave.
There's a lot of shit going on today, and we like Bjork.
That's a great explanation.
Okay.
I love that. Yeah, we do like Bjork. We like Iceland.
What's left of it?
What, the show or Bjork?
Global warming. Global warming.
I'm thinking of the glaciers, but I'm talking about the country. But that's okay.
It's a glacial country. We will be sending an autographed copy of the Gutenberg Bible, one of the original ones, to anybody who can pronounce Bjork's last name. Just call 313-288-9070. That's Butterfield 89070, and leave that pronunciation, and we will get that that priceless tome to you eventually. So,
is this how you pronounce it again?
Björk. Björk Guðmundsdóttir.
Guðmundsdóttir. Huh? No.
Did they leave that message on their voicemail?
No.
Okay, then they're
Björk.
disqualified. The offer is
Guðmundsdóttir.
Come on, clear as day, right?
The offer is void. Thanks, Mark, for ruining an opportunity for someone to end up with a precious artifact.
You have one of those?
Let's just move on.
How do we donate? How do we buy?
Oh, these are questions that are so hard to answer.
What's the feedback?
Bryant was kind enough to support this show, although we're giving less reason every week. And we have a belated thanks to William, who wrote after Sean fessed up to his inflexibility. This is a physical inflexibility, not an intellectual one.
I don't have any intellect at all.
He said, hamstrings. Might I suggest the next time ML is not available for the podcast that Sean could do an entire episode about hamstrings? To which I say, we couldn't do any worse. So look forward to that in the future. We have some great feedback that we've been overdue in getting to. Estelle writes, good morning, Michael. Last time she called me ML, so I don't know why we're so formal now. I heard you say we can FOIA Great Lakes Water Authority salaries. I'm aware. But GLEWA salaries are not just something a single person should uncover. Things like this ought to be public record for the masses to consume and know.
Amen.
It seems like Newsroom have a wink-wink deal to keep this sort of public employee salary info suppressed and away from the public's eyes. They know full well it'd be a big story if merely the top 25 salaries at GLEWA were put in an article. So many fat cat freeloaders in this region. I'm so tired of it. All this money we're soaked for while our quality of life declines. Nobody answers phones. Infrastructure is deplorable. City and county services are practically non-existent. Yours in dismay, Estelle. So yes, it would be great if we had more reporters, but one of the reasons we don't is because people aren't paying for news. So please subscribe to debtnews.com. And if you have to, freep.com, because they don't really cover
I realize you did that for me.
But yeah,
Looks like
trying to
Estelle-
subsidize some foolishness.
Michael's not listening, I guess.
Looks like Estelle sending out the back signal for Councilman Elric.
I'm not sure, but here's the thing about this. Yes, reporters can get this information, but the public is empowered. We don't have any special rights or privilege to get this information, so there's nothing stopping folks from doing it. I'm not saying the media doesn't have a responsibility to get this information. I'm saying, please, folks, use your power to get information out too. And I also will tell you, I would be stunned if there was a conspiracy by the media to keep this quiet. And you know why? Because if there was a conspiracy by the media to keep this quiet, it would end up on the front page.
Quiet, yeah.
Because there's no these jokers couldn't pull off a conspiracy any more than most of our elected officials can, because Bellotta used to catch them, and now he's going to release them. Boy, that happened fast. But no, as you hear from a lot of defense attorneys, they view their role as helping their client deal with a difficult situation, making sure that law enforcement does things the right way, because the most serious thing you can do is deprive someone of their freedom and their property. And so we got to make sure it's done the right way and that everybody has a fair and adequate defense. Is that not so?
Good people, bad decisions.
Good people, bad decisions. I don't know. If you're stealing from one of the poorest cities in the country, you ain't a good person. It's a bad decision, but you could be a flaming bag of dog shit. I don't know. We'll talk about that in a future show. Lisa inquires.
There'll be future shows.
Not so sure after today.
It's Sean's hamstring hour next week on this channel. Lisa inquires.
Or you're for Mackinac. I guess that'd be
They
good too.
clearly pressured the equipment guy to tweet this. How uncomfortable. And she sends us a link to Dexter Belcher at Dex57, who says, all love for my boy at D-Square10. Nothing like a jersey swap after a hard-fought battle. And attached is a photo of the equipment manager for the Kentucky Wildcats football team exchanging a jersey with the equipment manager's, or for the equipment manager's long-sleeve T-shirt. Lisa goes on to say, if Sean is on the pod, I'd like to know what he thinks of this viral shove of the innocent equipment kid.
I'm not on the pod.
I'll tell you, it was horseshit. The guy's an asshole for shoving the kid.
It was all just a
No,
mistake.
here's what I think. I hope
Human behavior like Bjork and
I hope that the coach or the athletic department disciplines him.
Absolutely.
That's what I hope.
No, and if,
the player?
If people didn't see it, the play went off to the sideline, and the player
And
kept
he runs
running.
up to him.
And he stopped, and he just shoves the equipment
And instead of
manager
just- yeah,
over.
and
for
then-
whatever reason, like she pointed out,
That should have been a penalty or something. I don't know if you can call that a penalty.
on his own team, on his own.
You should have to lose some equipment, probably.
Yeah, play without a helmet.
Gave up a jersey. Okay.
I don't know. I saw that. I'm like, what an asshole. And then hear the guy come out to say, no, everything's fine. We're totally cool. Because what else is he going to say? You know, it's just a bad position to put that guy in.
Yeah, no, it was not cool at all.
But you're right. Penalize him.
Yeah. He needs to be, something needs to happen. You can't just treat people like that. Unless you're Mike.
So just if you're keeping score at home, if you push an equipment manager, you will pay the consequences. If you do just about anything else Sean says, it's all right. Just human behavior. Kelly asked.
No, I'm with Mr.
There's a
Bellata. If you
mischaracterization.
steal, that doesn't mean you're an absolute dog shit person, like you said. Was that the quote? Or is it horse shit?
If you steal from poor people, you are not a good person.
You just don't know. I mean, you should pay for it. That's a bad decision.
If you steal from poor people, you are not.
People steal all the time. Sometimes for
When
greed,
you
sometimes
steal-
out of desperation. I don't
When
know.
you steal
What
from
about
poor
Jean
people,
Valjean?
he didn't steal from poor people. He stole from.
Robin
If
Hood,
you
what about
recall, he
that?
stole from the bishop's manor.
They're not thinking
No,
about
wait.
poor people. They're not thinking about any individual.
Well, when you're a public official,
That's
you should
great
be
for
thinking
you.
about poor people,
That's great
and you should
for
be thinking
you.
about them first.
That's great for you on a campaign trail, and that's great.
No, that's bullshit. Don't even bring that over here. If you're a public servant and you don't care about poor people, you don't deserve to serve. That's not a campaign statement.
I'm not saying
that's
you
not
do
my
deserve to
feeling as a
care. I'm saying you
politician.
can fuck
that's my
up,
feeling
and it
as
doesn't mean you're
somebody.
evil.
Can we get Robert's
I'm
Rules
saying
of
this
Order?
as someone
No,
who's sick
never.
of people taking advantage of the disadvantaged. When you are paid $90,000 by the people you serve and then you steal from them, you are not a good
Listen
person.
to the prosecutor over here. The prosecutor.
He's not the prosecutor now. Now he's a defense attorney.
I see.
He'll tell you that he's not the prosecutor. He's a defense attorney.
It's fine. Stay in your black and white world. I'm going to stay in my gray one.
Let me ask you this. Do you think they think they're stealing from poor people when they take a bribe from a big deal? Michael Bellata?
Yeah. I don't think they think about it.
Isn't it as much of a crime of opportunity?
They may think
By
they're
an
taking
idiot?
money from a rich corporation who will never feel it. It's just taking a
Sure, it doesn't make it right, but
exactly.
it's not. I don't think.
Of course, it's not
as
right.
simple as stealing from poor
Exactly. But of course, it's not right.
people. But you're right. I mean, it's a abhorrent thing to do. But more things make up a person than one bad mistake or.
Yeah, like what if everybody had their worst 5 moments, like put on a website? You could just look at the website and see everybody's.
Today would be one of them for Mike.
Yeah, for me, this is
That will be on a website.
by far my worst appearance ever anywhere. So this would probably be number
And
one.
yet you stay, which I'm impressed with.
I'm a glutton. But I.
If we found that your other 4 moments involve stealing from people, you will not be welcome back. How about that?
But stealing their hearts, maybe.
Okay. I see we've stayed too long.
That's the perfect way to sum it up.
Did you ever steal a bit of honey or anything like that?
Not even a bit.
Jocked a box of Milk Duds when you forgot to bring your wallet. Okay, listen, if you want to hear some really good podcasting, obviously you have to turn somewhere else. That would be Charlie LaDuff's No BS News Hour or the Drew and Mike podcast. I think that's plain enough. With the remaining breath I have, I will just ask for mercy and for Cyrus to take us out.
Can you dig that?
Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
And there, ladies and gentlemen, you have the solution to our mystery. Thank you, Miss
Sean Windsor,
for serving as our guest armchair detective this evening. As mementos of the occasion, I have for you a copy of my latest mystery anthology, The
Kwame Sutra.
And what's for next week?
And now,
Next week, Oh, by the way, are you interested in cards?
Cards? You mean bridge, poker, and such?
Well, it isn't about cards, even though I call it One Diamond. This is
the Soul of Detroit,
saying goodnight until next week and enlisting all Americans every night and every day in the fight against bad citizenship, bigotry, and discrimination, the crimes which are weakening America.